Jazzy Correa.
Jazzy Correa.
Of Jazzy Correa.
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 We're Jazzy Correa.
Of Jazzy Correa.
In this video, we'll discuss the story that happened in 2019. Jazzy Correa was planning to celebrate her 23rd birthday at one of the entertainment venues in Boston. However, she didn't return home after meeting with friends. What happened to her was in the news of many American TV channels. Before diving in, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. Jazzy Correa was born in Praia, the capital and largest city of Cape Verde. When Jazzy was 3, her father immigrated to the United States with her. They lived in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Boston became her home, where she grew up, went to school, and later became a loving mother to her daughter Gabriella. Jazzy's personal life wasn't a fairy tale. About a year before the events we'll discuss today, Gabriella's father, Miguel Castro, attacked her. She wanted to leave him, but Miguel wouldn't let her go. Instead, he beat her badly. Later, Jazzy went to the police, and eventually the court sentenced Miguel to 4 years in prison. Jazzy worked as a waitress at the Boston restaurant Del Frisco. She loved to dance and was passionate about photography. The young woman treasured her time spent with her family, friends, and daughter. She enjoyed going to the park with her little daughter. On the evening of Saturday, February 23, 2019, Jazzy left her 2-year-old daughter with her family because she planned to celebrate her birthday with friends. They decided to go to Venue, a nightclub in Boston's theater district on Warrenton Street. She put on her new orange jumpsuit and had a good evening. A few days later, her friend told the police that she and Jazzy spent the night dancing and drinking champagne. After the nightclub closed, Jazzy and her 2 friends went outside. As it often happens, the friends unfortunately went their own way, and Jazzy was left alone. She didn't come home after that night. Her phone was off, and all calls went straight to voicemail. Sunday, Monday, no news from Jazzy. No one has seen her since she left the venue on Sunday morning. On Tuesday, February 26th, her father, Joaquin Correa, accompanied by a friend of Jazzy, went to the police station and reported that his 23-year-old daughter had disappeared. The police launched an investigation. The first thing the detectives needed to find out was where Jazzy went after she left the nightclub. Her family and friends distributed information flyers to passers-by and around the city, hoping that someone would share important information. Detectives talked to Jazzy's friends who were with her that night. However, this did not help the investigation much since they did not know where she had gone. After leaving the nightclub, they said their goodbyes, and Jazzy planned to return home. The police interviewed witnesses and examined CCTV footage from cameras in the club and the streets closest to it. One of the recordings showed Jazzy on the sidewalk on Tremont Street near the nightclub, where she communicated with several people at 2:14 a.m. It was after she left the nightclub. The footage also showed Jazzy, who was apparently under the influence of alcohol, getting into an Uber that she didn't order. She mistakenly got into the wrong car. To put it mildly, the driver wasn't happy about it. They started arguing, and he pushed her out of the vehicle. What happened next was of particular interest to investigators. She continued arguing with the driver after being forced out of the car. At that moment, an unknown man approached her and offered to take his hand. He took her aside a little, and they started talking about something. Perhaps she wanted to leave, but this man wouldn't let go of her hands. In this recording, you can see that they are standing on the sidewalk, and this man, holding Jazzy's hands, pulls her towards him. Further examination of the CCTV footage showed that Jazzy left the area with this man. Knowing how this story will end, one realizes she fell into the clutches of a predator who decided to take advantage of the situation. The next video from the cameras shows that Jazzy jumped on the man's back, and he carried her to his car. They got into the car and left. 14 minutes later, the police had to find answers to many questions. Who was this man? Where did he take Jazzy? Fortunately, they quickly found out his name and address. The man Jazzy was with turned out to be 32-year-old Louis Coleman. He grew up in a good family and, according to some sources, had a master's degree in physics and had no problems with the law. There was no information in the police database that Louis Coleman owned any car. However, his mother, who lived in California, had a red 2016 Buick, and it was just the kind of car in which Coleman put Jassy Correa. Coleman lived in Providence, Rhode Island, about 50 miles from the Venue nightclub. The police arrived at his home, but the man was no longer there. CCTV cameras inside and outside the building confirmed the worst fears of the police and Jassy's family. The drive from the Venue Club to Coleman's apartment in Providence was about 1 hour, which means he stopped somewhere, because he returned to his apartment on Sunday at 4:15 a.m., about 2 hours after he put Jassy in his car. The following day, Coleman emailed his colleagues. He said, "Hi all, just giving everyone a heads up that I'm still out sick. I'll be back in a few days." Judging by what he wrote, he needed time to hide the traces of the crime. That's what he tried to do in the next 2 days. Now, we will look at more CCTV footage that will allow us to understand what happened to Jassy after she left with Coleman. The police never released the first recording for ethical reasons, but it showed Coleman going to his apartment with Jassy. Below is how FBI Special Agent Thomas Zukauskas described what he saw on the recording. A short time later, Coleman walked from the red sedan towards the front of the building, carrying a body with long hair and orange pants. I believe that this footage shows Coleman carrying the victim into his apartment building. According to Zukauskas, the video from the building's lobby shows that at about 4:27 a.m., Coleman entered the building carrying a woman in his arms. Then he got into the elevator and went up to the 6th floor. Jassy was not moving at the time. She was either unconscious or already dead. On Tuesday, February 26th, the very day when Jassy's father reported her disappearance to the police, Coleman was caught on cameras in Walmart. The list of goods he purchased was very revealing. The receipts that the police obtained indicated that he had bought 3 Tyvek suits, duct tape, 2 candles, electrical tape, a mask, surgical gloves, 2 pairs of safety goggles, a respirator, and the CLN release bleach bath. The next day, on February 27th, while relatives and friends distributed information flyers with Jassy's picture to passersby, Coleman again went to Walmart. The footage shot at 9:22 p.m. shows him wheeling a cart, which again contained very characteristic items. This time, he bought a large suitcase and a canister. On February 27, 2019, at approximately 9:58 p.m., Coleman appeared on video entering the apartment building with what looked like a new large suitcase. Next, the footage shows that on February 28, 2019, at 2:15 a.m., Coleman wheeled the suitcase away from his apartment unit towards the elevator, out of the building, and into the parking lot to his vehicle. This footage does not need more comments. Watch it, and you will understand everything. Coleman appeared to have difficulty lifting the suitcase into the trunk of his car. Between 2:44 a.m. and 4:02 a.m., Coleman allegedly left the building several times with cardboard boxes, trash bags, a bottle of bleach, a computer tower, a black laptop case, and a small duffel bag. Jassy Correa has never left Coleman's apartment since the morning of February 24th. Later in the day on February 28, 2019, the police obtained a search warrant for Coleman's apartment where they found 2 packages of hooded coveralls and 2 respirator masks. They also examined a sofa with 4 large cushions. One was missing a cover. In a dumpster outside of the apartment complex, they found white trash bags, a bag containing plastic sheets, men's jeans with bleach stains and a belt, a white nylon hooded coverall, an unfilled box of baking soda, clear safety goggles, duct tape packaging, rubbing alcohol, Walmart bags, used plastic gloves, an empty package from a car air freshener, 3 used packages of purifying charcoal, and a sponge. On the afternoon of February 28, 2019, the police stopped Coleman's car near Wilmington, Delaware. Officers ordered Coleman out of the vehicle and asked if anyone else was with him. Coleman answered, "Yes, in the trunk."
Is there anybody else in the car? Yes. Yes? Where? Where in the car? Inside the trunk. Whoever's in the trunk, get out of the trunk! Go to the back seat now!
In the trunk of Coleman's vehicle, officers discovered Jassie's body wrapped in a sofa cushion cover, which was inside a black trash bag inside of a large suitcase that matched the one Coleman brought into his apartment on February 27, 2019. Experts who examined the car found cracks on the windshield in 2 places on the passenger side. It gave the police reasons to believe that the man attacked Jassie in his car. They arrested Coleman and transported him to a Delaware State Police barracks. While there, Coleman had a large bandage on the right side of his face. When asked about it, he allegedly replied, "It's from the girl." During the forensic examination, the experts established that Jassie died of strangulation and blunt force trauma. Moreover, they found seminal fluid on her body, DNA samples of which matched Coleman's. Prosecutors have said Coleman's DNA was also under Jassie's fingertips. At the same time, experts could not determine where exactly Jassie died. It could have happened in the car or Coleman's apartment. Jassie's death was a shock to her family. No less sad was the fact that her 2-year-old daughter had lost her mother. Some representatives of the Boston authorities visited the Correa family and promised to get justice for Jassie. As often happens, some people accused Correa via social networks of being alone on the street at such a late hour. Suffolk District Attorney Rachel Rollins expressed her opinion on this. Jassie was not in the wrong place at the right time. She was right where every woman has every right to be, celebrating her birthday on a night out with friends. Let's not fall into a discussion about whether we should walk home alone or how many people we should call when we're leaving the club. If anything, let's remind the men in our lives that violence against women isn't a woman's issue. It's a problem that men take responsibility for in their lives, in their sons' lives, and in their social lives with friends and colleagues. On Saturday morning, March 9, 2019, grieving family and community members came to St. Peter's Parish in Dorchester to say goodbye to Jassie Correa. Some loved ones wore all white, while others wore pinned buttons, shirts, and sweatshirts that displayed Jassie's face in the phrase, "Justice for Jassie." As a family, as friends, as a community, we express our sadness, but we must also accept the death of Jassie. We do not know, but God knows, and I have faith and trust in God with all of my heart that her death was not in vain, said a cousin and best friend to Jassie while delivering the first eulogy. Boston Mayor Marty Walsh also spoke and promised to work toward creating a safer world for women. Young women deserve to go out at night and celebrate their birthdays with their friends, and they deserve to come back home afterward to their children and their families. No family should ever go through what Jassie's family has endured. Joaquin Correa, Jassie Correa's father, thanked the crowd of over 200 people inside the church. According to one cousin, Jassie's mother, who lived in Portugal and had not seen her daughter in 20 years, was also in attendance. The parents appeared stricken with grief as they prepared to lay the 23-year-old to rest. There were no empty seats at the church. Many people lined the back wall. Joaquin Correa thanked the city for its support, and all of the different law enforcement agencies and departments that did not spare effort and resources in fulfilling their noble and risky mission in the 3 states involved. "Rest in paradise to my dear Jassie," he said. "Rest in peace, my dear child." Louis Coleman was charged with kidnapping resulting in death. The The charge of kidnapping resulting in death could carry the death penalty or a life sentence. But in November 2019, prosecutors announced they would not seek capital punishment for Coleman. During the trial, prosecutors presented a range of evidence, from a video showing Coleman dragging Jassy Correa's body into his apartment in Providence to the history of his online searches in the days following her disappearance. FBI agents described the online searches Coleman made in the days after the alleged kidnapping. They included, "Can a person fit in a suitcase? How to pull a tooth out that is not loose?" But Coleman's legal team has argued the evidence presented by the prosecution had little to no relevance in the charge against Coleman. It is not a case about whether he handled himself properly after her death, whether he did things that were illegal, inappropriate after that, and that, frankly, has been where the bulk of the government's evidence has laid. I would suggest that none of these things are determinant of the elements of the kidnapping allegation, said attorney David Hoos. Several motions filed by the prosecution and defense described in detail what happened the night of Jassy Correa's disappearance and the days before the police found her lifeless body. Two sides had different narratives about what happened, but the documents revealed frightening details about the unfolding events and the circumstances that led to Jassy's death. Prosecutors proved that Coleman was at the same nightclub as Jassy and her friends. Inside the club, he was chatting with a woman he had just met. It wasn't Jassy. They talked, danced, and even exchanged phone numbers. They texted each other while at the club and after it closed. The defense and the prosecution expressed two different points of view. Prosecutors said Jassy was not the aggressor and that Coleman took her life after tricking her into believing he would give her a ride to her friend's apartment. Coleman's defense team argued otherwise, saying that Jassy behaved aggressively after the Uber driver pushed her out of the car. At trial, defense attorneys tried to argue that Jassy started the fight with Coleman on her own initiative, and that the crime was a sudden altercation, rather than a planned and executed stalking, kidnapping, and deprivation of life. Prosecutors said that the gist of the defendant's argument appears to be that the victim, who weighed 111 pounds at the time of the autopsy, assaulted the defendant, who weighed 200 pounds at the time he was booked. Coleman's lawyers tried to downplay their client's role in the crime. After all, in addition to alcohol, the toxicological examination showed traces of several different types of prohibited substances in Jassy's body. In June 2022, Coleman was convicted on one count of kidnapping, resulting in death. The defense team filed a new motion arguing that the evidence is insufficient to sustain a conviction. However, they could not influence the outcome of the trial. In October 2022, the court sentenced 36-year-old Louis Coleman to life in prison without parole for kidnapping and taking the life of Jassy Correa. The court also ordered him to pay her family about $60,000 in compensation. Jassy Correa was a vibrant and beautiful 22-year-old woman and mother of a toddler daughter. Louis Coleman, a total stranger to her, abducted her, assaulted her, and strangled her to death. The pain and suffering Louis Coleman inflicted on Jassy Correa that night, and her loving family, her mother, her father, her brother, and so many others, every single day since February 24, 2019, will never be relieved by this sentence. By his depravity and his horrific disregard for Miss Correa's life, Louis Coleman forfeited his right to live free in society, said First Assistant United States Attorney Joshua Levy in a statement. To this day, Louis Coleman has shown no remorse after he lured 22-year-old Miss Correa into his car, sexually assaulted her, and violently killed her. Louis did not once consider turning himself in. Rather, he concocted a gruesome plan to conceal the assault and murder he just committed. Today's sentence of life in prison is a just punishment, Levy said in a statement. It remains unclear where Louis Coleman was taking Jassy's body and what he was going to do with it. And that brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.